Request for videos about the 300. Well, I got it out of the shop. Obviously the rear end broke off of it. When I went to move it today, it actually completely broke off, so I had to drive it up on the trailer like that, front wheel driving it, no problem. Zilla's pulled it up there, no big deal. I went to rebuild the rear end, so I got it all apart. These bearings, the bearings on the side of the diff are actually fine because they're pumped full of grease. See how nice that grease looks? But I'm still going to split the diff open, soak it in diesel and gas mixture that I pulled out of a Honda Accord, and got that nice little service. But what you do have to do a lot when you have an axle paddle is you have to change the bearings in the brake backing plate pretty frequently because they're going to get water in at least one side of them, usually both sides. I use an 85 Big Red because it's the easiest one to do a brake delete. That's the bearing carrier. Those are the two bearings that were in there. They're shot, but they're cheap. You get the knockoff Chinese bearings with the, so you want a sealed bearing, right? Because the back is going to be open to all kinds of pain. What I do is I ultra grade the bearings in there to keep water from getting into the outside of this bearing carrier and rusting it out and letting the bearings spin. That way I can just change the bearings. You know, they're the sacrificial part. This stays good. And that's just the bearing carrier that bolts on the axle. So I'm changing those two out. And once I get the whole rear end reassembled and back and greased up, that's a new toy. I'm snorkeling that thing today. Once I get the whole thing greased up again, I'm going to start working on the new swing arm's good to go, but I've got to create a new shock mount for my nice beefy 300EX shock and braces and stuff. Probably going to do a nice arc now I got the pipe bender out. But the splines on the axle for the diff look great. These splines look pretty good. These splines look a little bit rough as you'd expect, but they'll be fine. Just need to be cleaned up, nice and lubed. I need to paint this axle again because all the dirt that's in there is making it start to rust a little bit, but it's just surface rust, nothing that's going to cause any issues. My axle paddle is looking well, hasn't spun at all, and yeah, that's what I'm working on. I'm installing new swing arm bearings into my new fancy swing arm with a Honda wing welded into it, super beefed up, double sleeved. This thing should be very strong, but it needed swing arm bearings, and these are always a pain. Sometimes you can get away with using a blind bearing puller on the inside of the race, like one of those guys, and a slide hammer, just heating up the outside of it and slide hammering it out. That was not going to happen with this because this one was a little bent up. You can see how it's kind of dinged up here and here. It's a used swing arm, obviously. So the trick here is you get your welder out and you weld a bead around the inside. One second. This thing's still very hot. Weld a bead around the inside of the outer race. Doesn't have to be real pretty, just enough metal on there. See the bead all the way around. Using an old stick, probably a wire welder would have done better. But what you do is when you weld that bead all the way around in there, that bead's hot, and when it starts to cool, it contracts. So it goes, and you'll hear tink, 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 tink. And that's the outer race actually being compressed, and you'll see a gap open up all the way around it. I like to spray a little bit of PB Blaster in there, and then sometimes you can just tack the swing arm and tap it on the side of the bench, tap this part right here, and it'll just fall right out. That didn't happen in this case. I had to go in there with the slide hammer and the blind bearing puller, grab onto those welds and slide hammer it out. But really, the only way to get these bearings out without spending a ton of time on it. I didn't make this up. I saw it, read it on a forum a while ago, and I've been doing it ever since. Like I said, use a wire welder if you have one, but you can make it work with an arc if you have a clue what you're doing. Now, I'm not that great, and it worked for me, so yeah, good luck. Only way to change a swing arm bearing on these things. This swing arm is very sexy. Look at those welds. Thank you, Toby. All right, got the 300 jammed up, replaced all the broken swing arm parts with a very new, very nice swing arm and a very new, very nice 300EX shock. This is how it looks at full down travel. Really freaking tall in the back, obnoxiously tall in the back. It's gonna sag some, but I let the jack down. I'm gonna add a limiting strap for safety, but this is as much as you can go without the rear end hopping because the U-joint's binding up. Just barely clears the axle paddle, right? That's how we like it. Barely clears the axle paddle, left clearance where it's not gonna be an issue, but that's as far back as you can mount the shock without messing with your paddle, which is good for ride quality and stuff. It's a 300EX shock. It does use a 12mm bolt, so you have to bore out the hole up there to use a 12mm bolt. So different, bigger bolt, but it fits up in the mount, stock mount nice once you drill it out. To drill it out, I like to use a really weird way to do it. I'm not sure where it went, but you take a 1/4" socket, put it on the extension, and then you put your hex drill bit in there. So you make like a drill bit extension, right? 1/4" socket, extension, and then you got your taper drill bit like that, and that's how you can get all the way up in there to drill out that top mount. Put that on your impact, good to go. Yep, it's the ghetto way to do it. But yeah, it came out pretty nice. Whole rear end's rebuilt, new bearings, here, here, here. Didn't mess with the pinion bearing, it looked fine. Drive shaft looked fine, U-joint looked fine. I'll service the U-joint next time. New swing arm bearings, as you saw earlier. But yeah, it looks really nice. Got that nice Honda wing in there. Oh yeah. I'm gonna paint the wing red, tape it off, paint the wing red, so it matches the shock spring. I just threw some paint on there for now to keep from rusting, so I can go test it out. Yeah, it's looking pretty mean. Let's see how she looks once we take the weight off of it. Put the weight on it. So there's with sag. It's pretty good. A little high in the back, but with me sitting on it, it should be about perfect at that preload. Really happy with that spring. It's actually gonna travel now, and it's gonna ride nice. Oh yeah. And maintain some ground clearance. Good to go. Just getting ready for the Marengo ride. Gonna go piss off some Can-Ams.